thank you for being with us here at Community Storytelling. I'm Lissa Kreisler. Thank you for watching us on KCAT TV 15, Season 6. I still can't believe it. Linda Lester, thank you so much. Leicester Square, if you haven't been there lately, go again because she's got some new tenants. And Tyler Taylor, another one of our wonderful sponsors from SASSY, Successful Aging Solutions and Community Consulting. And I have an Assemblywoman here, our newest Assemblywoman, although, how long have you been in office now?
Well, I got elected in November of 2022 and then sworn in December, but really got to work in January of this year. So, yeah.
Gail Pellerin, if you have not met her, look at that face. She is our person, and you're doing a fabulous job.
Thank you.
From over the hill, Santa Cruz County. So thank you for driving 17.
Yeah.
How was that drive?
It was great. And I have family here, and my husband used to work over the hill, as they say, and spent a lot of time here in Santa Clara County.
So, you know, I think in the 6 seasons, I have covered almost every topic there is, but we haven't covered this one today. And I have a feeling you're going to say, once you start listening and watching, I'm so glad you're talking about this today. We're talking about suicide. Mm-hmm. And sadly, suicide has really touched all of us in some way or another, whether it's a relative, a friend, somebody famous who we've adored, and all of a sudden they're gone. And for you, it was your husband you lost.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it will be 4 years ago this November. And it doesn't get any easier. Actually, I'm sorry, 5 years ago.
And I wasn't going to correct you, but November of 2018.
Right,
and I bet you can't believe it's 5 years.
No, exactly. It's been a journey for sure.
Let's go back. Let's go back to November of 2018.
Yeah.
Tell us what you want to tell us.
Well, suicide was not a subject I thought much about or talked much about.
Who does?
And you know, quite frankly, we had stress in our marriage, and I had moved out recently, and I knew he was sad and he was depressed, and tried to help, tried to sound the alarm, but we were in marriage counseling at the time as well. And the morning that it happened, I had gone to the gym. Went to a boot camp at 6:30 in the morning, and got home and to the place I was renting, and my landlady called and said, "Hey, there's a cop here." And I thought, oh no, I must have parked wrong on the street. My car's sticking out. And so I kind of go running out with my keys to move my car. And he says, "Do you know where your husband is?"
And you probably said at work, right?
And I thought, well, it was like 7:38 in the morning. I thought, well, home, or maybe he went to his brother's, or I don't know. And so.
And your husband was a very prominent attorney.
Very prominent, super amazing person who had everything to live for. You know, we have 2 kids together. He had a great job as an attorney over here in Santa Clara County. Family who loved and supported him, and you know, I really felt we can get through this, and I wanted us to maintain being a family, but it was just, after 25 years of marriage, we were going separate ways. And I remember being there out on the street, still holding my keys, and the cop, or the sheriff's deputy, was calling the other sheriff folks that were at the house. And
so they already knew what had happened.
Well, no, not yet. No, they were. So it was a play-by-play, and
take your time. And you know what? We should have had Kleenex.
I know.
I'm going to start crying any second as well, and I know you are.
You know, and not going into too much detail, but I walked them through the house, and room by room, and they got to the main bedroom, and it was locked.
Had somebody done a welfare check?
He had a friend that was spending the night.
Okay.
And the friend had called concerned. Anyway, he's no longer a friend. There was a lot of issues there. But the bottom line is I was on the phone with them when they broke down the door and found him.
Yeah. Enough. You know, we don't need to know any more details about that.
But just being on the phone and hearing that was so profoundly just debilitating. I remember collapsing on the street and sitting on the curb just sobbing, because it was just something I just couldn't take in and believe. Yeah.
Where were your children? And how old were they?
So that was 5 years ago. They're 25 and
right.
28 now.
Okay.
So
we can do the math. Yeah.
And
they were living with you, I take it?
yeah, so they were both off to school. So
right.
my son was at UCLA, and go Bruins. And then my daughter was attending UC Davis, go Aggies. And but she was with me because they had the fires that were going on, and the air quality was so bad. And it was the week before Thanksgiving. And so she had come to Santa Cruz to stay with me.
And thank goodness she was with you.
And she was there, but she was asleep in the cottage, and I'm out on the street just losing it. I mean, just absolutely losing it. And
which is a normal reaction.
Yeah.
And 5 years later, here you are. It's like yesterday, right?
Oh, it feels very fresh.
I mean, my husband passed away 17 years ago, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I'm just listening to your story, not any of the same story, but I know the feeling of losing somebody.
Right.
And the pain never goes away.
It never, thank you. And that is so absolutely true. And in the early days, I was just desperate, reading everything I could read, and what I knew about suicide, what I thought I knew about suicide was wrong. And I've learned a lot about suicide since then. But I went to a talk at one of the local churches in Santa Cruz County, and I can't remember who was speaking, but the words he said resonated with me so much about putting your grief to work. Because I thought, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to get my family on a path toward healing? And certainly that path is not straight. It's not one direction, and it's not flat.
And the survivor is left with that job.
Yeah.
The mother or the father, whichever case, or the grandparents,
right.
or even the best friend.
Yeah.
You are left with that task of bringing everybody along to a place where they can have a life again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the hardest thing I've ever done in my life was going back into that cottage.
And did you want to do that?
Oh, daughter, what happened?
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I was thinking going back into the house where your husband was.
Going back to where my daughter was
I can't even
asleep,
imagine.
And telling her what happened.
I remember when I had to tell my daughters that their father had died.
Yeah.
And that was of natural causes. So totally different stories. But it's the same hurt and it's the same pain. And, you said something. You said suicide is not what you thought it was.
Yeah.
Tell us the difference. Tell us the reality.
Well, I thought it was selfish, and I thought it was a coward act that cowards would take. And but people die by suicide, and we say die by suicide instead of commit suicide. Suicide's not a crime.
No, it's not.
So we don't say commit. We say die by suicide, took their own life. Some people use the word completed. There's lots of different terms out there, but I say die by suicide. And when somebody does take their own life, they are in a place of extreme depression, sadness, have lost all sense of hope for a future, and quite frankly have lost their fear of death, where leaving this world
just seems right.
is a better answer than staying in this world.
How do you change that in somebody? How do you let them know that the better answer is to stay?
Yeah.
I mean, have you learned any of that along the way that you could share?
Oh.
I mean, how do you say that to somebody when I don't know if you realized how sad your husband was. I doubt you had any idea he was going to take his own life.
I would never have dreamed that he would do something
and
like
I bet
that.
you
it was just way out of any idea.
And I bet you anybody who knew him, his partners, his colleagues, I bet you nobody would have ever thought that of him.
Yeah. And the folks you leave, the grief trail you leave behind of people who miss you and want you in their lives. And my children, our children together are suffering and needing their father. And it's such a void, and it's really hard to navigate a path forward from that.
And the phrase that I've always disliked, for whether you lose somebody naturally, suicide, it's just time to move on.
Oh yeah.
It really is never time to move on, because you don't really want to forget, or I think the grief stays with you, right?
Absolutely. I saw this meme or whatever you call it where there's a big cloud, and that was grief. And the woman was sitting with her grief and feeling that grief and accepting that grief, and then getting up and taking that grief with her and doing the dishes. And that's how life is, because that grief is in my being every single day.
I'm
And
sure-
it's not something that I will ever get over. It's something I've learned to live with.
And thank you for saying that, because I think people think, I have to get over it. No, you don't.
No.
You do not have to get over it. And I'm sure every day
Yeah.
you think of your husband.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm guessing every day, almost every day, you probably think of that moment.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And and my path to get here has been supported by some amazing suicide survivor groups that I joined, and of course my family, my children, my colleagues, and the fact that I now have a platform where I can raise awareness even more than I did as when I was county clerk, registrar of voters. In fact, the first year this happened, I did a suicide prevention awareness proclamation for the county and spoke before the county board along with my daughter and my son, and just raising that awareness and letting people know it's okay if you're not okay, and there's help. And with the 988 number we have now, easy to remember, 3-digit number that you can call or text.
Is that in every county?
24/7, yes.
No matter where you
Yes,
live.
yeah.
988. And where
988.
does that bring you?
So that will take you to basically a suicide prevention hotline or mental health hotline, where there are trained professionals that will talk you through it, and just taking that pause. And that's that's something I want to talk about here. So I'm wearing a bracelet that is for suicide prevention awareness, and the colors are teal and purple. So I got a little pin here as well. But the semicolon, do you know the significance of
No,
the
I don't.
semicolon?
No.
So in a sentence, you can choose to end the sentence with a period. Or if you use a semicolon, it's a pause and you move on. There's more words. And that's the symbol for suicide prevention awareness, as far as when you're feeling that depression, that hopelessness, that feeling that there's nowhere to go and no hope for your future, take a pause. Don't take action that will be your last action.
How were you able to get past the stigma? Were you able to discuss suicide quickly, or did it take you a year? Did it take you 2 years? I mean, when were you able to sit down and calmly talk about it?
Yeah, no, it's, for me, I'm pretty open and honest. I'm pretty much an open book. So
I've met you many times. You are very
talking
open.
to everybody about it and sharing information and reading books, and people were giving me books, and I just was absorbing everything up. And but my family members took longer. Both my in-laws and our children.
Can we
But
talk?
that's okay.
Can we
That's
talk about your kids? How are they?
They're doing okay. They're strong, they're resilient, and they each are on their own path toward healing.
And do they understand? And
Yeah,
did they have to forgive their dad, or right away?
Oh, forgiveness is huge. Oh, thank you for raising that word. I should have a tattoo of that somewhere, because and the person that's the hardest to forgive is myself.
I get it.
Could I have done more? Could I have said more? Could I have been there?
But you know what? Usually the answer is you did everything.
I know, but ooh,
You know that.
it took me a long time to get to that forgiveness, and every now and then it just keeps creeping up to that. You do the woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Do you and your kids talk about it every day, or a lot?
We do, and especially this time of year, as
Sure.
we are in suicide prevention
Well, and you're
awareness,
coming up to the
And
anniversary.
we're coming up to the anniversary. And the reason I confused the 4 years with the 5 years is by some miracle of miracles. We had a dog at the time, a Labrador named Sutter, who passed away close to a year after Tom. Actually, it was September of in 2019, and so I was on a quest to find another a puppy or a dog. I wanted to adopt a mom that was done breeding, and I wanted to have a Labradoodle and a smaller dog, and so I started calling around to breeders about whether they were adopting out their moms. And this woman I called didn't understand what I was saying and said, "Well, I got a litter of puppies, and they're due on November 19th." And I just started sobbing. And she's just like, "Why are you crying?" And I explained to her the significance of that date. And she says, "Well, we're getting you a puppy." So Darwin,
I love it.
was born on November 19th, 2019, and he'll be 4 in November, and on the anniversary of Tom's death.
So you lost your husband. Then the kids lose their dog. You too as well.
yeah.
Then the pandemic comes.
I
mean, oh my goodness. It was a trifecta. I mean, it just kept on happening.
A lot, yeah. And, I think what's great about the pandemic, but one positive thing out of the pandemic is I think it really raised awareness of the need for connection.
Loneliness.
What happens in isolation. And more people are talking about mental health as a result. And that, to me, is what we need to be doing. We need to be talking. We are in a mental health crisis in this state, probably even beyond the state of California. It's impacting, they call them the littles, but our school teachers, 2, 3, and 4-year-olds are presenting with mental health conditions. And our young people, I mean, it varies between the second and third, leading cause of death for our young folks, our veterans and transgender folks and LGBTQ community as high rates. But typically, suicide does not discriminate. It impacts everybody of all income levels, of all races, of all ethnicities, and it's something that really impacts everyone.
What have you been able to do, or are you in the process of getting done to help people who need help?
Yeah, well, I think one thing I did when I first became elected and I started work in January is I sent a letter to Rules Committee asking that the 988 number be posted in every public bathroom. Great. And so we kept pushing for that and checking in on that. And at one point they were going to post it in the break rooms. And I said, no, we want it in the public bathrooms. We want everyone to see this number, that help is available. And so the day I presented my ACR 106 proclaiming Suicide Prevention Awareness Month for September, they put up the signs.
You know what I wish? I'm having a hard time maybe formulating this in my mind, but we have Facebook, and I'm still a Facebook person. I don't really do Instagram. I do Facebook, and everybody, myself included, we put such joy on Facebook. Yes. Every post is, we are living the best life. And there is that person who's looking at Facebook who is not living the best life, but kind of looks at it and says, I should be living that life. I wish we had some sort of a social media site where you could go to see what real life was all about. I don't know how to do that or how to go about that, but are we on the right page? Or, we need something like that so that people realize.
Having conversations like this. So thank you so much for highlighting this issue, because
it's my pleasure.
Having these real conversations about real issues that are impacting people. I saw a statistic that suicide happens in our nation once every 11 minutes. We've been here for 22 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And that's 2 people have taken their lives. And we need to have these real conversations. We need to be checking in with our kids and our senior population who really suffered during the pandemic. And I love what's happening in schools around mental health as well. I'm hearing about wellness centers that are being created on school campuses where kids can go and say whatever's on their mind, no judging, and to give them a place where they can connect and talk about what's happening in their lives.
So what advice can you give? You've lived it.
Yeah.
You've lived it.
Yeah.
And you've been living with it for almost 5 years now. Yeah. Is there, something valuable, something that maybe you think, hey, if I say this right now, I might help somebody?
Yeah.
What would you like to say?
Well, what I want to say is it's okay if you're not okay. and speak out. Find someone you trust that you can talk to. Call or text the 988 number, but don't make a decision that will be your last decision, because it will have lasting impacts on the world that you leave behind.
And for the person on the other side, you, look for signs. Don't be afraid to bring up.
Right.
I think you need to talk about it, right? Like you need to say to somebody, how depressed are you? I mean, what can I do for you?
Yeah.
Let's not go over the edge. I mean, I don't know. I
But,
have not been there.
Your kids come, how was your day at school? Fine. Dig deeper.
Yeah.
Tell me the best thing that happened today. Tell me the worst thing that happened today. Dig a little deeper into how people are feeling. Don't just take the, I'm good, I'm okay.
And I know for the survivor, it's always, if I just had one more day. But would that one more day really have made a difference?
I would hope so. And I tell you what, I mean, I am so impacted by this. I remember just maybe a year ago driving to get my shoes repaired and was on Highway 1 and the road was closed on the other side and there was somebody standing on the overpass and I knew they were thinking about jumping. And I burst into tears and just wanted to pull over on the highway and scream, "Don't do it. Don't do it. Stop. Take that semicolon. Take a pause. Take a breath."
And for those of you left behind, time doesn't have to move on.
Yeah.
Right,
absolutely.
You find a way to go on.
Yeah.
But it's part of you.
Yeah, and you need to say their name. Tom, my husband of 25 years, we developed we had a great marriage and raised 2 amazing kids, and it's okay when marriages don't work out as well, that they don't always end tragically like this. And, it's just important to speak out and to do our best to remove the stigma. And it's absolutely appropriate to say to your kids or loved ones or friends, are you considering suicide? Are you
just say the word?
Yeah. Are you feeling like you want to hurt yourself?
Right.
Let's talk about how you're feeling. Let's get some professional help in here. And because there's a lot out there. There's a lot of resources out there. And I'm super excited. I mean, every time, this is so fun to be able to I speak to the governor, but this governor and the first partner I get to see now that I'm an elected state assembly member. And every single time I talk to them about mental health. And the governor's got his proposition that's going on the ballot in March. It will be Proposition 1 that is going to be $6.5 billion for behavioral health and mental health. And it is about time. We need to make huge investments in the mental health of our state, of our people here.
And I'm sure you don't mind if somebody gets in touch with you, if they just want to hear your, they want to get some advice from you.
Yeah.
I can tell you you would not mind.
No, absolutely. And quite frankly, people who have experienced this tend to find me, and I will absolutely sit down and share my story and let you share yours. And I feel every emotion that they're feeling. I had a friend actually who called and said, I feel like I'm going to kill myself, and I went out to look about buying a gun today. And,
well, that's a whole nother conversation.
And I was on my way to a meeting, and I said, "Hey, I'll be at your house at 3:00. Promise me you won't do anything till then." And she did, and she's doing pretty well now. But it's, life is hard. Life can be really hard, but you need to have that safety net. You need to have those people in your life that you can turn to. And there's always the 988 number and getting help.
Are your kids advocate like you are?
I tend to put my grief to work,
of course.
And I've taken it very public. My kids are not so much, so I respect that. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody does it in their own way.
Right, absolutely. And that's another thing about grief, is that the way I grieve may not be the way you grieve, and the way my kids grieve, and how they carry that with them throughout their lives.
Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
I know. We're thinking of you and our support to your son and daughter, and thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.
And it was not in vain, Tom, because look what Gail is doing. Assemblywoman Gail Pellerin. I'm sorry, I'm a little choked
There
up.
we go.
I'm a little teary-eyed too. That was quite the story, and I'm so glad you were willing to share it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Now there's a story on community storytelling, and as I always say, everybody has a story. They're all different, and this was quite the story that the Assemblywoman was willing to share today. So thank you for being with us today on Community Storytelling. Thank you for being with us here at KCAT TV 15. Thank you, Assemblywoman Pellerin, for driving over the hill and sharing all of this.
I'm over here almost every day. So.
I'm Lissa Kreisler, and again, thank you for being with us today at KCAT TV 15. Come walk with me through Leicester Square, where, as Mr. Rogers would always say, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and it's always a beautiful day in Leicester Square. We're located at the corner of Los Gatos Boulevard and Blossom Hill Road, and there is so much variety here in Leicester Square. I think you can probably find anything you need. Linda Lester, we thank you in Los Gatos for all you do, and we thank you for bringing us such a fabulous neighborhood shopping center. Successful Aging Solutions and Community Consulting, also known as SASCC, or as we like to say SASSY, has been serving the needs of the 55-plus population for over 40 years. They're the team that created the Ride Senior Transportation and gives us the Outlook Community newspaper. Learn more about their mission to make life better for all ages at www.sascc.org. And we thank SASSY for supporting KCAT TV 15.